y'all doing? How y'all doing? I'm sure that a lot of you have seen that clip. I'm sure that a lot of you have seen the condensed version of that clip. I wanted to show you the full clip because I think that it paints a bigger picture in terms of the mindset of where that clip comes from, the context. Jamal Shead had just lost a game at the buzzer. The road crowd was very rowdy and very rude. In fact, they may have in fact felt lost, or they may have felt robbed by the referee at the buzzer, and ultimately tempers flared, emotions ran high, and context and perspective was lost. And yet this player that we, the Toronto Raptors, have drafted at the 45th overall pick, who has assumed the number 23 and effectively bet on himself, had the presence of mind to clean up trash. We often talk about basketball players at the collegiate level, high school level, as being above the law. They often float past laws that are for regular people. People adore them, people chant their names, and sometimes they start to feel like demigods among us. So, for a star athlete to have the presence of mind, the humility to do something like that was actually pretty impressive. Why am I doing a live at 4 a.m.? I know that hardly anyone is up at this point, but I wanted to share something while it was still fresh in my mind. So, first of all, big shout out to this community. The amount of support that has come towards me over the last, I want to say 2 months. It's really been 2 years, but especially over the last 2 months, has been something to behold. There's DMs that are several paragraphs long. I promise you, I do read them. There are touching messages like this that just blew my mind. I'm just going to read this out for anyone who maybe is just listening to this instead of reading it, saying, "Showing love for the work you put in. I randomly came across the late night video you produced on intelligence. Let me tell you how I had some profoundly significant, life altering, though unrelated to basketball, magical synchronicities, which your video seemed to be the catalyst in directing my consciousness to hone in on the potent life message being divinely downloaded. I didn't, quote, sleep last night, but the wisdom I received was as good as any best dream I have ever had. Blessings, champ." I can't say that all the messages are as poetic and as well crafted as that, but they are all meaningful. And this morning, I received a $50 e transfer with the message, "Pay it forward. Do something for somebody else." That was the entire message. And this person has asked not to be named. So we'll just call them JS. So, JS, I wanted to show you how I paid it forward. Now, to those of you who have heard of this, I have been, I have talked about it to some extent, that our condominium went through a massive renovation and it has not gone well at all. The company is a mess. The management company is a mess. The board of directors is a mess. Our current cleaning staff, who had gotten accustomed to cleaning a particular style of tile, which was a very dark tile, does not know how to clean these tiles, to the extent that our hallways look like this. These are pictures of the before. I mean, paint splatter from very careless contractors who've left us for 2 months. Just stuff just left. And look, this is very triggering for me. I lived in government housing for a large part of my childhood. Pee in the elevators, cigarette butts put out in the stairwell, condoms stuck everywhere. This was a very, very, you know, this was a really big part, and this was what I wanted to get out of. I worked since I was 12 years old because every single day, my mom and I, we used to watch this. I don't know if y'all had this channel, but there was a channel that would just have real estate just on loop, and they would have certain listings on loop, right? And it was, I don't know, houses of various prices, condominiums, etc. And it was just like a looping thing. And we would watch it. We were very poor and we would watch this. And I would look at the numbers and I would look at my $5 an hour, convenience store job when I was 12, 13 years old, $5 US, but still $5. And I would just say to myself, how many hours do I need to clean these floors to be able to get my mom and myself out of this government housing? So, you know, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that your environment starts to shape your identity. And to some extent, you start to feel like you are from where you are, like when you start to see that nobody's fixing the crack in the wall and no one is fixing the chip tile. And then when you go to somebody else's house and everything's fixed and nice, you start to feel less than. I will never forget this moment. And I've probably shared it before, but pardon me for repeating this, where I slept over at a friend's house and, they had all the video games and stuff. So it was really fun. And then one day I asked, y'all want to come over to my house? Like, have a sleepover at my place? My mom was pushing for it. She's like, hey, you've gone over to their house a few times. Why don't you invite them for a sleepover at your house? And they just kind of put it off over and over. They just would not say anything about it. And then at one point, I just kind of pressed a little bit harder and they said, my mom won't let me sleep over at your house. It's too dangerous. Building has a reputation for violence, a lot of gunshots, a lot of violence, a lot of gangs, a lot of stuff like that. And it's a very humbling moment when you're 13 years old and you figure out that a place that you live is not suitable for a friend of yours to spend one night and you start to think that you're trash. And I gotta be honest, seeing this shit every day for the last 2 months as people deflect and they blame and they, complain and, they say, oh, the cleaners are not doing their job. And the cleaners say, but the management hasn't told us how to do this. And we need a buffing machine and we need this. And all the while, this just keeps happening. And so today, when I came home, the mezzanine level had a whole bunch of pop spilled everywhere. And this just triggered something very bad. And so I sat there and I just observed myself and I just watched it. And I watched as 30 people came by. They all bitched and complained. They all said, who's going to clean this? And I just sat there for 20 minutes on my phone, just kind of scrolling and just kind of waiting to see if somebody would do something about it. If anyone had that Jamal Shead civic pride or, building pride of, hey, I live here. Somebody else, maybe some kid or something dropped this pop. The parents haven't come down to clean it. Maybe I'll clean it. Maybe I'll do something. Nobody did. Nobody did. I sat there for 25 minutes and nobody came down. People bitched about it. They complained about it. Oh, this building's going to shit. Oh, nobody's going to clean this. Oh, stupid kids, blah, blah, blah. But nobody cleaned it. And as nobody cleaned it, sometimes people would step on it and then they would track it into the elevator and then the elevator would get messy. And that's kind of a great metaphor for life, isn't it? So I remembered that I had this e-transfer and I was asked to pay it forward. So this was 1 a.m. This is 4 a.m. So this was 12:30. So this is 12:30 and this is 4 a.m. right now. And for the last 3.5 hours, I went through my entire building and I cleaned it. So that's fun. I took Tilex and a grout cleaner that's pretty premium. We had ordered it off of Amazon last week to clean our grout. And I took 2 piles of Bounty to clean up just so no one slipped. I took a tile cleaner, like the one we use for our bathroom, and voila, I cleaned it. I cleaned the shit out of this. Why am I sharing this with you? Well, One of a few things is gonna happen. And by the way, it's pretty amazing to clean at 2 AM. Our building is very quiet, like, nobody saw me doing this, which is amazing, and I'm very happy for it, and I'm happy that I did it late. It would have been kinda difficult to have to explain to people why someone who lived there was doing this. I tackled a lot of thoughts, you know? It's a union job. The cleaners are union, so, kinda doing their job might put some pressure on them. I don't know. I didn't want that to happen. What I wanted to happen was for people who had slowly started to feel like they were living in the ghetto again, despite being homeowners, despite paying tremendous amounts in maintenance fees every month, despite having mortgages. I mean, it's a pretty immigrant heavy, you know, a lot of people of color, right? So it's a pretty immigrant heavy building. I'm assuming a lot of people here are buying their first home and probably were renting for a while and probably tried to get out of renting and effectively move to this place to maybe put a safer life or a better life for their kids. And for those people to every single day wake up and try to go to work as there's paint all over the tiles and dirt just built up. Ugh, the amount of dirt. Like I filled up an entire garbage bag full. So it's 20 floors in this building. I didn't do all 20 floors, I gotta be honest. That would have taken me 5 days. It was intensive, scrubbing and work. But I wanted to do this. I really wanted to do this. I wanted to do this because I hope that tomorrow morning when people wake up, there's like a sense of peace in this building. It strikes me as crazy that people sit there every single day and they complain about this, but no one does this. No one thought to do this. No one wanted to do this. I'm sure they clean their own homes, but when it comes to cleaning the elevator buttons or, cleaning the tiles in front of the elevators or even cleaning the mezzanine or the lobby or something like that, they would just scoff at it and say, "That's beneath me. We have cleaners for that." But if the cleaners are not doing their job and the management is not holding them accountable because they're unionized and the construction workers and the contractors had not cleaned up after themselves or have not provided a buffing machine or something of that sort, then ultimately it is the people who live here that are going to suffer every single day. And we've had an AGM in which a lot of people vented. People spent 5 hours at an AGM, myself included. This is the first annual general meeting I've ever attended because it just felt like shit was going really bad. I don't think that what I've done here is going to inspire any sort of change. I don't think that this is going to start sparking community cleanups. But I do want to say that the best people in my life were self starters. The person that I respect probably more than any person in my life, and you're probably expecting me to say some basketball player, but it's actually not. It was a dear friend of mine who's passed away. His name is Rob Stewart. I'm not looking at the comments right now, so I'll apologize if, I'll engage with the chat a little bit more in about 5 minutes and just get through this, and I'll get to your comments if there are any. One of the most influential people in my life passed away, a few years ago. He was a filmmaker, but more than being a filmmaker, he was an activist. He was a person who wanted to save sharks, and he did a great job. He changed he changed the future of this species on this planet. He's from Toronto, and yeah, his name was Rob Stewart. I've never felt so. I mean, to be completely frank, I am the least impressive Robert that I know. And he shaped my life in so many ways. I remember meeting him 2 weeks before he went down to the Florida Keys and passed away because he did, like, multiple dives that day with a rebreather, and he'd never really used a rebreather before, and anyways, I'll spare you the details. You can definitely Google it. It's very popular filmmaker, and his film Shark Water was instrumental in changing how people viewed sharks because Jaws did a real number on people's sympathy level for sharks, and so people were just finning them. And I remember asking him once because he nearly died making the first one, right? I remember asking him after he made the first one, is it worth it? Like, you're gonna die doing this. Like, you're going up against cartels, like, legit. Like, I'm not joking when I say that. Like, go watch the film, go watch Sharkwater. Like, he's literally trying to expose cartels and giant businesses. And I'm just like, whoa, like the spirit of activism in this dude, what drives him. And I remember him saying, I can't wait for somebody else to do this. And I think that in this 20 to 25-minute live, I would like to ask you if perhaps you would like to follow his lead in doing that. That instead of taking this bitch about it, complain about it, vent about it, be pissed off about it all the time approach to why your neighborhood isn't more clean, take pride, organize a cleanup. You would be surprised how many people are just waiting for somebody to do something like this. I mean, people don't have the initiative to start, but maybe you do. And maybe only 2 people show up the first time, but you'd be surprised that when people see what you're doing and they ask you, "What are you doing?" and you have those vests, they're $10. You can get them. You might have 10 the next week, and the next thing you know, if you're a homeowner, your property value is going up. And you know what's crazy? The best part about this, when people see their neighbors cleaning, they're way less likely to litter. They're way less likely to throw their cigarette butts on the ground. They're way less likely to, just throw a pop can on the ground, which I think is just crazy and disgusting. And frankly, I don't know why anyone would ever do that. One of the things that I learned living in government housing was that dilapidation leads to dilapidation. That when people look around at their environment every single day and see broken, they don't take care of it anymore. And that's just sort of sets the tone. You know, Gino Ariama, one of my favorite coaches of all time, UConn women's coach, he talks about bad shot selection as being the number one thing that you want to teach your team. And he says, and this is his rule, and it's a fantastic rule. He says, if you're open, you have to take the shot. Like, you don't take the shot, you're going to get benched. So you have to take the shot. If you're not open and a teammate is open and you take that shot, that's the last shot you take all game. We bench your ass and you don't get to take any more shots that game because that is how selfishness starts. Because what happens is somebody who is left open and watches you take a dribble pull up over 3 defenders as you Hail Mary it over the backboard, that person now is way more likely to follow your lead and ignore the coaching plan and say, well, if he can do it, why can't I do it? Selfishness is a curse. Self, and I think the Raptors saw that, right? I think the Raptors saw that. So it is very important. It's very important that you've brought in good people. It's very important that you have an organization that is hyper aware of this right now because they saw what happens when you don't have those people, when you have people betting on themselves, when you have people putting, I said the winner effect yesterday in yesterday's live about the winning. Well, what happens when one person's definition of winning is winning $100 million contract and the other person's definition of winning is winning basketball games? You have clash. What happens when one coach's definition of winning is securing a contract extension while the assistant coaches are just trying to win basketball games? What happens when a coach who's on his way out decides that development isn't that important because he's not going to be coaching these players for very long anyway? You know, we could have a real deep dive on ethics, but that is what it comes down to, right? Do you continue to work after you've given your 2 weeks notice because it's the right thing to do? Or do you check out because you have nothing to lose anymore? I think that you find out who people are when they have nothing to lose. I really do. I think you find out who people are when there's no incentive to do the right thing, but they do the right thing anyway. One of the coolest things about supporting this team, and by the way, a belated happy birthday to Scotty Barnes, who turned 23. 23 is my favorite number. He is officially going on the 24th year of his life. A little confusion with Brian. It's funny. I posted a story, and I was like 24th year, and Brian messaged me and he said he's 23, and I'm like, shit, I'm so stupid. I should have added context to that. 24th year. He's on his 24th year of life. He's also a big Kobe fan. Number four, going into year four, 24th year in the six. Y'all get it. Numerology, right? I'm not a numerologist, but I just thought that the numbers were too striking to not make a big deal out of it. But you realize that this kid was in the most selfish culture where everybody was betting on themselves and everybody was like, fuck winning. And this kid just sat there and still tried to win. I hope Masai Ujiri saw that, and that's why he just parsed ways with everybody else and just said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna build around this kid because this kid is built of good stuff." I know this community saw it. I don't think the media saw it. I don't think the casual Raptors fan saw it, but it's a really important thing that you have a person who is so convicted, so convinced of their own beliefs of what is right and what is wrong, that even when everything around him is going wrong, and even when his coach is doing the wrong thing, that he still sticks to his guns and says, "Nope, that is not the right thing. I've been better coached and better raised than that." And now you have people who are vibing with him. You just imagine how many players on this team would have sat there with Jamal Shead and cleaned up that trash. Think about it. I think Scotty would have done it. Absolutely. I think Yours Shamshay would have done it. I think Jacoby Walter would have done it. I think Jonathan Mobile would have done it. I think Grady Dick would have done it. I think Chris Boucher with big heart, he would have done it. Everyone on this team is good, good people. So there's nothing to root against, and there's nothing but good players to root for. And I'm very happy about that. So this is what sports is about to me. Maybe sports to some people is escapism. It's never been escapism for me. Maybe it was escapism in like the few months after my mom died and I just wanted to get lost in something and root against another team and talk shit. But to me, sports has always been a great metaphor for life. It's always been a great way to teach people because a lot of kids admire athletes. I certainly admired athletes. And so, yeah, I learned how to work hard by watching Kobe Bryant work really hard. I thought that was a great metaphor and a great way to inspire myself. And I think that, the civic engagement, community engagement, the fact that, for instance, like everything we shared about you or Shamshay, I hope that that has been an inspiring note to somebody out there. I really do. I mean, if he can do it with where he started from and how hard he worked at the age of 18, I'm sure all of us can probably take a note or two from that. I always joke around with when I'm talking to my girlfriend, I always laugh and I say, I'm 36 years old and I'm learning every single day from this 20-year-old, 21-year-old Scotty Barnes. And now I'm learning so much from this 18-year-old Yuri Shamshay. And, I think that we should never be too old to learn from someone who's younger than us. In fact, I remember when I was tutoring when I was 23, 24, I would often learn a lot from the 8, 9 year olds that I was tutoring. They would say something, or maybe they would be listening to a song, and I would be very curious about what song they were listening to or what that phrase that they meant. And this is, I think, the process of continuous learning. And we should continue to learn and continue to grow. My hope with this video is that you will do something and pay it forward. That you can do something and be a self-starter and maybe, you know, it's such a small thing. I remember being 8 years old and, being so embarrassed that there was pee in the elevator that I took our mop and I went into the elevator and I tried cleaning it. I just spread it around and made a mess. And I didn't know how to mop jack shit when I was 8 years old, but I tried. I think it's important to realize that a lot of us complain about a lot of things on a day-to-day basis. We probably complain about our boss, but what are we really doing about it? We complain about our partner, we may complain about our kids, but are we actively seeking ways to make that situation better, or are we just complaining about it and making ourselves miserable? We may complain about our job or where we live or, that vacation that we haven't taken, but do we do something about it? What are we doing about it? And so, my parting note to you before I get to the 19 comments and respond to them is ultimately that if you have some time today in the morning with your morning coffee or morning tea before you start work, make a list of maybe three things that are bothering you right now and then make a list of one thing that you can do today to make that situation 1% better. I don't think this solves all the problems in our building right now. We have infighting on our condominium board. We have a renovation that is, 4 months, 5 months past when it was supposed to be done and no sign of completion anytime soon. Probably have a hike in maintenance fees coming up at some point because they went massively over budget. Oh, this is not even remotely I haven't done 1%, but did I make it 1% better? For the people who wake up tomorrow and go to work, will they be like, "Oh, that's nice. The cleaners finally cleaned this thing," And maybe that makes them more patient in traffic. Maybe that makes them more generous to a homeless person. I have no idea. What I do know is that throughout my life, I have noticed that good inspires good and bad usually inspires bad. So do something good, make a situation that you're upset about 1% better, and see where it goes. All right, let's get to the comments. Okay. Tetrahedron saying, I don't want to talk a lot in chat, but I'm almost always here if I can be. Love your stuff, and I learn so much every time. Thank you so much. 4 a.m. Ha, checking out tomorrow, but I left a like. Thank you so much. Teacher Mike. Yeah. How the okay, cool. Thanks a lot. Watching from Egypt, these 4 a.m. lives turn into great 11 a.m. ones. 10 a.m. here, 4 p.m. here. Slid Slitherman saying, "Is that who I think it is?" Hmm? Jamal Shead. Yes, it is Jamal Shead. Title is easy. Not Donald Fagan saying, "How is any tile difficult to clean?" Good question. These are honestly they're very porous tiles, and certain tiles require uh, like that buffing machine, and certain tiles are like ceramic tiles where they're very easy to clean off because they have a sort of glossy surface. These are not glossy tiles, like, they don't have a glossy surface. So, unfortunately, they're like stone. If you've ever tried to clean marble or something, it's not so easy to clean. Because Jamal Shed showed us that he's got great leadership. I agree. I agree, and that's what you want in a point guard. You want someone who's willing to, again, if you have some time later, watch that video again in the beginning and just see how easy it would have been for him to walk past it. He didn't do it. He didn't create it. And frankly, if he had done that, ultimately, like, Houston looks bad, right? Like, they look like whiny babies. They look like assholes, frankly, and someone else has to clean it. And I just thought that that was such a small thing that he did, and I don't think that he did it for the fanfare or anything like that. I think that's just who he is, and it's a really great thing. Anyways, I do wanna say that I took the advice of some of the community members who've been asking for more interviews, and I got over my anxiety about reaching out to people because I always feel like, you know I don't know. I'm very honest about who I don't like and who I do like, and so I've, not been very nice in some of my coverage towards Malachi Flynn, Jalen McDaniels, Cade Cunningham, Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam. There's a lot of players that I have maybe ranted against. So I always think, like, what if I message a trainer who's training one of those guys or is a really big fan of one of those guys and they just tell me off and tell me to fuck myself? So I've always felt like a little bit anxious about that, but I got over it, and hopefully y'all will see a couple more of those interviews, and hopefully I can get even better at them. I do really appreciate the support for the Yours Shamshay video. It was really awesome. I think hopefully this community is much, much more aware of who Yours is as a person, as a player than the average Raptor fan out there. And hopefully y'all can, come correct, and maybe, we can have a G League game or something next year where we all show up and, watch Yours' first game or second game or something like that. So that would be cool. Anyways, this wasn't meant to be a very long live, although I do tend to yap and there's a yeah, there's this term, like, I hadn't heard of yapping until I got on PCL, and then everyone in the comments like, "He just be yapping, he just be yapping," and then apparently this is, like, a very cultural thing, which is to say that you're saying a lot without saying very much, and I think that maybe I'm a little bit verbose and I do talk a lot, so I'm trying to learn to condense my words. Also, I'm learning not to say, which is hopefully going pretty well and smoothing out my talk. But one of the things that I've gotten a lot of pushback for is that I'm very monotone. Like I don't have a lot of highs and lows, and I'm very steady, in how I speak. And maybe that's a little bit boring for some people. But I also got a lot of feedback on the, "Oh my god, he yaps a lot," so I gotta learn to be a little bit more succinct. I gotta be like the Raptors Digest guy, like, "Hey, this is what's happening. This is what's happening now," and then boom, done. But yeah. Anyways, I do wanna say that what's PCL about? Someone gets a PC and the other gets an L? Good joke. The PCL. So the PCL is the Players' Choice League, and I will be on, I believe, 7:30 on August 4th, and I will be debating against somebody, and it's voted. So I will ask y'all at when the time is a little bit closer to get out there and help me out because I'm gonna be arguing for the Raptors versus so there's like a debate and it's 2019 Raptors versus 2020 Lakers, and you better believe there are a lot of Laker Glazers in that chat, right? And they're gonna vote Lakers no matter what. So y'all better get out there and vote Raptors. Okay. Liberals saying you're even killed. Well, not when I'm pissed off, but yes, yes. In most cases, I am pretty. I'm pretty steady. Anyways, that's it for me. I hope this video was not as bad as I think it was. I hope it's better than I thought it was. Sometimes I think a video is terrible and people tell me the next day it's great. I just wanted to speak my mind on this. I don't know who needed to hear this. Maybe y'all have fantastic buildings with amazing cleaners and or maybe, there's someone out there who's living in a really dilapidated building that is falling apart, and maybe you could do something about it, organizing a community cleanup, etc. So, who knows? I have no idea who needs to hear this. Maybe nobody needed to hear this. Maybe I needed to just say it. Anyways, I'll talk to y'all later. Have a great one. Have a great day. And yes, I will definitely do a post game live for the Canada Spain game. I am really hoping that Canada continues its winning streak and that RJ Barrett continues to shine. All right, talk to y'all later. Bye.